Good evening, everybody. All right, welcome back to the first session, the second part of the first session of 2024 town meeting. We'll go over some stuff again real quick, but first, would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, again, welcome back. We have the remaining warrant articles to go over tonight on the ballot. Just a few things. I know most, if not all of you, were here on Tuesday night, so I won't go over things too much. Let's see. I guess the things to remember, tonight's session is a legislative session. You, the voters, are the legislative body. We're here with a specific purpose to discuss the warrant. This is not an open meeting of the public to discuss anything on your mind. State law requires we only conduct business of the warrant. I'll read each warrant article. Someone will present, usually the town, especially for the remaining articles. And then there'll be just discussion. You have the right to, if you choose, to question, deliberate, or amend the warrant articles. Once discussion's done, I'll ask the body if they're happy to put the article on as either presented or amended. Amendments must be submitted to me in writing that I can read. Do so ahead of time if you can, please. Voters, you should have checked in and received your voting cards. If you haven't, the ballot clerks are over there. Is there anybody, so as probably people are aware, you have to be a registered voter to vote as well as speak unless you've been given permission to speak. On Tuesday night, the body voted to allow several non-registered voters to speak for the session. Is there anybody that is a registered voter that was not here on Tuesday that would like to be given the chance to speak? All right, seeing none. If anyone does fit that criteria and does feel the need or the desire to speak later, please just get my attention and we'll have the body vote on giving you permission to speak during the meeting. Yes? Amelia is running a little late. She's not a resident of Littleton, but she will be speaking on behalf of Parks. Okay, she was one that was approved Tuesday night, so awesome. All right, just going over speaking, we got a microphone right there. Select board, and anyone from the town will speak on that one. I get to speak on this one. When speaking, please state your full name, your town of residence. If there is a vote to end discussion, anyone in the queue will be permitted to speak. The queue is just going to be anybody lined up waiting their turn. Please address the moderator, not one another. Please make your point. Be respectful of other people's and of their time. No personal attacks. Let other people speak. If there's no one else, you can then speak again. Remember, we are here to discuss the posted warrant and nothing else. If someone breaks the rules, they'll be ruled out of order. Do it again, there'll be a warning. Continue to do it, you may be asked to leave, but I don't think it'll come to that. I don't think we have a backup date for again. I hear there's a basketball game tomorrow and the weekend is upon us, but I hope we can get it all done tonight. If not, we'll have to figure that out when the time comes. You do have the option of restricting reconsideration after a vote is taken or after several votes. And then, again, just some historical housekeeping. At times, people have voted to place remaining articles on the warrant as presented, and the meeting can exclude any from that motion if they choose. The other ones that I had on my list was a time limit to end discussion, which we did pretty good with last time, and we didn't have the motion. So outside of that, I don't have any rules or guidelines. We can now discuss the warrant and start with an article, unless anybody has a motion or anything like that.
Yes, this is Deborah Warner, Littleton. I would like to request that the body consider Article 53 at the start of our list.
Okay. So
that is the one lease of land for battery energy storage system. And so,
Okay, so we have a motion to consider Article 53 out of order. Is there a second to that motion? And we have a second by George Morgan. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of discussing Article 53 out of order, please hold up your purple yes cards. 1, 2, 3. All right, we have 15 yes votes. All right, all those opposed, please hold up your green no card. All right, and we have 11 of those. The yeses pass. So we will now we'll now start with Article 53. Lease of land for battery energy storage system to provide energy storage to Littleton Water and Light. Shall the town lease approximately 9,500 square feet of land at the town's west side substation at 1533 St. Johnsbury Road to Convergent Energy Solutions LLC or its designated affiliate, Convergent, for an initial development period of 3 years followed by a lease term of 20 years with the option to extend the lease term for up to 10 additional years. Convergent will use the leased land to develop a battery energy storage system to benefit Littleton Water and Light customers directly by allowing Littleton Water and Light to utilize stored energy in lieu of purchasing energy from ISONE during the peak energy demand hours. Convergent's payment for their use of the land shall be $1 for the duration of the lease term. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 2 to 0 to 1. Is there anybody that would like to speak on the article? Okay, I guess we got questions. Tom, do you want to speak a little bit about it, or do you want to answer questions?
I can do both. I can give her a preliminary.
All right, yeah, Mike, do you mind if Tom just gives a little overview of it, and then we can?
Tom Considine, Littleton resident, and I work at the Water and Light, so it kind of makes me a double ratepayer as well. This is basically a yes and no vote. It's yes, you're okay with using the land for this purpose, or no, you don't want to use this land for this purpose. The detail will be discussed, as I said, with the solar by the front table. They'll work out the details and the permitting and whatever else. This is just so they can empower them to talk to Convergent to work the details out. But what it is, it's kind of it's cutting edge renewable for us, for Littleton Water and Light. It's battery storage. If you know anything about batteries at all, batteries are a maintenance intensive product. We have batteries at our facility in Bethlehem. They're a constant maintenance headache, but they work. This is part of our power supply system. There's two facets of power supply, the generation and the transmission. If you generate the power, you got to get it someplace. That's the transmission piece. Both those items, or those products, are controlled by ISO New England, which is the independent system operator in New England, which is a subsidiary of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the government, basically. They control the grid. So we cannot impact this piece, the transmission piece, by doing anything. We're the end user. We take what they give us. What happens here, that any time during our system, at 4 o'clock in the morning, our system's about 5 megawatts, or 5 million watts. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we're sitting around 12 megawatts, or 12 million watts. They track that usage pattern. It's a big sine wave. They track that pattern. When it peaks, that's what they consider our cost. Every day, they track our peaks, and every month we get billed on the peak day or peak hour. With this product, supposedly, and through engineering, they're going to turn those batteries on at those peak times and bring that down from 11 or 12 by 5 megawatts. And hopefully that coincides with the grid's peak. That's going to save us about $10,000 a month. So you can do the math. It's about $120,000 a year over 20 years. It's a big number. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at a way to trim our costs, and it's one of the reasons we can do it because of this system. It's expensive. That's why there's 20 years. But that's really the only means we have to trim our transmission costs unless we just drop our loads, which is not going to happen. So I'll answer any question anybody has.
Thank you, Tom. All right, we got questions.
Steve Height, Littleton. Who's responsible after it lives its life, and what's the expenses or whatever for, you talk about the nuclear stuff. What's the cleanup cost after the fact? How's that handled?
My understanding is that the company will be in charge of decommissioning and taking away and recycling whatever product they have left over. No cost to Littleton Water and Light or the town.
Tom, do you want to come up here so you're not going back and forth, or? Okay.
It's been a long time. Okay, my concern when I was reading that article on the warrant was the dealing with risks and remediation. After talking with Tom, the remediation part of it, I understand a lot better. But one of the concerns I have is changes in how we're staffing our fire department, in that they don't go in and knock a fire down at one of these facilities like they would in a house. Okay, you pour water on it and essentially it exacerbates things. So really, you have to let it burn itself out. And in regard to convergent energy, we said back in July 27th of 23, they had one of their facilities burn up in Lyme, New York. And then in another one, just about, I think it was about a week later, not a week later, but a week after it opened up on June 26 and 23, Convergent Energy facility in Warwick, New York, went. So, these things aren't without risk. And, if we have to change, if we have to increase the scope of our firefighting in this town, not to mention the risk to the firefighters themselves. The fire in Lyme, New York, after it burnt itself out, they couldn't even approach the fire, the remains of the fire, for almost 3.5 days. And these things burn intensely. So, again, my concern is that the firefighters themselves, these things aren't small things when they start to go. So, that being said, thank you.
Bruce Hadlock, Littleton. I have a little bit different concern out of it, looking at the thing for $1. The Water and Light Department does a good job, don't get me wrong, but they have a thing up in Apthorpe, which is called the White Mountain Hydro. Now, they buy the electricity that runs through the generators, as far as that part of it's concerned, which in turn does a very similar thing to this. It would lower the cost of what it is. They don't generate a lot of electricity, so it doesn't save a huge amount. What the key to it is that the people that own White Mountain Hydro get a tax bill of approximately $4,500, okay? This money in turn comes to the town, and it also helps the 140 families or so that are like Roger, who do not have Littleton Water and Light. The Water and Light Department should be working to try to take care of these 140 families one way or another. out of it. And you can, I mean, charging something for $1 is not realistic out of the thing on it, just to give the people in the town the benefit of electricity on a lower rate. They should be working to take care of the whole community out of the thing on it from that part. And it's an unfair thing to be voting something for just $1 on the thing on it from that part. These things are very not uncommon of what they have today as far as that part. And I do believe that they mentioned the fact that the fire chief in turn is involved with the regulations on whether they have water or what they have to have as far as that part. But what you're voting on doesn't tell the whole story on the thing on it. You should be putting the information out as to what you'd be signing with contracts and dealing with it prior to voting on something to give them the permission to just to go on the land. It's the wrong way of doing things on it from that part, to be honest with you. You should be holding the hearings, figuring out what it's going to be, what the lease would be, and what it's going to cost, and the safety factors like the fire department and everything that should be all brought into it before we go in and giving these people permission to do something for $1. It's not right. Thank you.
All right, do we have any other comments, questions? Nope.
Tom Alt. It wasn't too many years ago that we had a group come to town, and a lot of us, a whole lot of us, went to the Opera House for a zoning board hearing, and our present fire chief stood beside the then fire chief with a big picture of a lithium-ion battery fire out of control, while our former fire chief explained that there was no way our department would be able to deal with a fire of that kind. They were going to place it out on Foster Hill Road, which if the worst thing happened, which would be a fully engaged fire, would have isolated everyone on Foster Hill Road. There wouldn't have been a way to even escape the thing. Where this location is, there's still a residence in the area, and if you had a fire of that kind, you certainly would be shutting down Route 18. I know you could use I-93, but I'm wondering what has changed with this great hue and cry from the fire department a few years ago that we hear nothing now. Because these fires, I have a stepson that works over at Burlington International Airport at Beta Technology. They are designing electric aircraft using lithium-ion batteries. They had a fire early on in a small storage trailer, and the only thing that got it under control as quickly as it did was that the Vermont National Guard Fire Department was at the scene to be able to deal with it. So this is nothing that's probably under the plan book of any town's fire department right now, and I'm not sure why it isn't getting any mention.
Who wants to go first?
Well, again, I know they have we have no binding paperwork or document in place now. This is the first step. This is the yes or no on the use of land. They haven't even got to the point of going to the fire department with any type of, or zoning, or planning, or permitting through fire as far as, but batteries, they're up and coming. You know, I'm sure I'm not going to be the last person that's going to come before this body and say, we need some type of energy storage, so we either embrace it or we don't. I'm not an advocate. I'm an advocate because I'm going to save money by it. Well, not I, but the Littleton Water and Light will save X amount of dollars to help defer transmission costs, which are only going up. Batteries and electric vehicles and the such are here. I mean, are they the great thing? I don't know. But from a fire perspective, he's the expert, I am not. And that's what I told, Tom, just so you know, I told Convergent about the last episode we had out on Foss Hill Road. The only thing I know is this, the scope. We're looking at 3 Connexes versus whatever they had. The scope's a lot smaller. They're saying they can contain it. They would work with fire to come up with a plan. And again, we haven't got to that point because we got to get through this so they can open these discussions up. That's what we're at. Am I advocating for this? Personally, maybe not, but professionally, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question for the fire department. Just that Echo said, it's premature for us to discuss this project. We hadn't received any types of plans. We have some basic understanding of the scope of it. The previous proposal, if I recall correctly, was something like 13 acres, and I forget how many Connex containers across 13 acres, but it was pretty substantial. And we understand the scope of this to be a lot smaller. We've also had the ratification of the NFPA standard 855 for battery energy storage systems, which we didn't have when the first system came along. And there's also, there is a degree of philosophy that we'll have to accept. We have had small lithium-ion battery fires here in Littleton. One of which was at our elementary school, which was contained to the room it was in because it was witnessed by staff that were on site in the evening and took very quick action to extinguish it, or to attempt to extinguish it, to hold it at bay. We have many buildings, I shouldn't say many, but there are buildings that are being built with these systems in them. Not on the Connex scale, but maybe on the scale of 2 or 3 of these podiums put together. And we don't, under the current system of codes and regulations, get to know about that. So if you can imagine the danger that you're concerned about as far as a Connex trailer or 2, from a fire safety perspective, if we have these located in 1 or 2 areas of town where we know it's a target hazard as opposed to rolling up onto a building that has batteries this size that we don't know about. And now we're trying to enter an apartment building or a small commercial building or a residential building to extinguish a fire with all kinds of hazards we're not aware of. Philosophically, it may make sense to try to combine these into one location where we can make sure we get the right resources to it.
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. I guess my biggest concern is that energy usage, electricity usage, is going to increase drastically. There's a big push for heat pumps. There's a big push for electric cars. There's a, everything we do with electricity is going to increase usage. And that will increase this peak because the peak is when everybody's got everything going on. If we can bring that down, it will save all of us money and may even be able to get us power when other people don't have power, because there's going to be a time when the power that exists right now is not sufficient, when everyone starts electrifying things. And I don't see that happen. I mean, I don't see it happening next year, but I see it happening in the next 10 years. The other thing I want to bring up is the fires in New York. There were actually 3, and the state put in a fire safety working group to investigate the fires that Convergent had in those areas, specifically looking at what was going on in the aftermath. And they found no evidence of significant off-site migration of contaminants associated with the fires. And there was also another testing that was done at the school buildings that are relatively near. They don't say how much. And those same things, there was no contaminants, no toxins. So it's not like if there's a fire, we're all going to die because of the toxins, like what happened in East Palestine, Ohio. Not that they all died, but there were deaths that were related to the train derailment and what caught fire there. And with that, I guess I'm going to say there's a risk to life. So when we say risk, obviously we need to determine what that risk factor is. And we're not the first to do this, but there's no reason for us to be the last to do this. Thank you.
George Morgan, Littleton resident. I live on Foster Hill, and I was involved also with fighting those batteries there. You're not talking about one battery. You're talking probably hundreds of batteries in this facility. So dealing with a fire with one battery is bad enough in a car or in the house for a couple batteries. It is something that gets out of control. The heat is intense. Like it was said before, our fire department won't be able to handle it. There's just no way you're going to be able to handle it. And you just have to watch it burn out. When you do fight it, whatever you're going to use to fight it, water is useless on it, but if you do put water on it, it's going to carry away lithium heavy metal into the ground. It's going to go down into the ground. It's a hazardous material, so even though it may have, the lady had said this fire, they didn't find anything away from the area, where the area is fought, that liquid that hits the ground is going to be absorbed into the ground. So I don't know what they do today for mitigating those problems, but they certainly didn't have answers for it several years ago. And lithium, by the way, the battery energy storage systems, not new. They've been around for over 20 years. The technology's gotten better, but there's been a lot of fires in this country with lithium batteries, not just the couple that were in New York. It's nothing new. Thanks.
I'm Peter Cooper, a Littleton resident, and I'm on the Water and Light Commission. I would ask if there's some way for this warrant article to go forwards to allow the selectmen and other committees to engage with Convergent and ask these very questions and explore. They do have a fire suppression system as part of the system. 3M Novec 1230, which I don't know what that means, but apparently there is monitoring and fire suppression built into these things. And if it's in a location where it can safely be allowed to burn out without trying to fight a fire, that needs to be at the comfort level of the fire department and so on. So I guess I would ask that, for one thing, the $1 for duration of the lease term, I'm not sure how that came about, but it ought to be land use as negotiated by the selectmen, actually. So yet to be determined what that payment should be. But I would ask those of you who are expert in this area how, if this could go forward and allow there to be a discussion by the select board and fire department and others, whether or not it can be, but it is a way for us to mitigate the cost of transmission, which is about 20% of the bill. It's second highest that we pay for energy and we pay for transmission, and the transmission is really out of our control. It's whatever the transmission system and ISO New England set. And this is a way to try to mitigate that cost. So that's what we're trying to do, is hold down costs for the ratepayers in Littleton. Thank you.
Bruce Hadlock, Littleton. The other thing is that the zoning ordinances should be adjusted prior to doing something of this nature. So if you put it into your zoning, it would be talked about, figured out what the best way of doing it, and then they would have to bring it in. You bring that in after you do it. You don't put this in first. You in turn go and put something in with your zoning people, and it should be addressed on the basis of having an ordinance as to what you do, whether it's done like this, or even if it's in buildings out of it that are going to have them, whether it's schools or anything else on it, they should be addressing it through that part of it first. Thank you.
Greg Darling, Littleton. if this is approved by the taxpayers and this goes in, we are, seems to me, committing ourselves to a 3-year lease minimum with this outfit. And if we go into negotiations with them and discover that some things come forth that we don't know about, that changes our mind, I want to know if it's possible that there would be, we would be able to get out of this.
Rudy Chelsea, Littleton, New Hampshire. What I want to ask is, who made this $1 for the duration of the contract with the police station? God forbid something happen over there, right? You know, after, you know, they started to put it, you know, use a battery and stuff like that. How much would it cost for the fire department to go over there and take care of the problem? Doesn't going to cost $1. It's going to cost us tax money to do the job that they got to do. I suggest, you know, the people that want to know in this one articles, also, you know, it's in regard to Tom talk about the aeroplane and stuff like that. Yes, they tried to make an electric airplane. The FAA, they rejected. Thank you. But anyway, okay, what I want to say is this. Who come up with this $1 a year for, you know, what's this $1 a year? For what? To lease the property? $1 a year to lease that property?
I feel like you're asking me, Rudy, and I'm not involved with it.
Oh, and that's the problem, because you should have been involved with the tree salesman, because you are a farmer. That's right. That's the problem. Because you should have been involved with them. They come up with something different.
I believe this is it's Water and Lights article, correct?
Yeah.
We didn't-
What?
No? Okay.
It's.
All right.
Excuse me,
She'll answer that question for you.
Yeah, if it's water and light,
I apologize for the
that's all right, no
inaccurate
worry about it.
information.
I will attempt to answer the question.
Yeah,
What, Convergent created the warrant article.
yes.
The select board cannot move forward with any agreement or any conversation until the town, the voters, vote on that warrant article, yes or no. If they say yes, we can move forward. If they say no, then it's dead in the water.
Dear selectmen, you know, when you put $1 over here for all of us, voters,
We
a
did not-
taxpayer, what the hell is $1? Yes, put a
We
yes
did
on it.
not create-
No, it's the consequences, that's what we talk about. That's why we're over here, to talk about the consequences. Do you think, you know, the fire department, God forbid, something happen over there, it's gonna cost $1?
It has a self-suppression system within the container.
You're
That's
not-
number one. Rudy, let me finish.
Sure.
Let me finish.
Sorry.
Thank you. The warrant article was written by Convergent because we could not, as a select board, agree to a lease without the voters' approval. And until the voters say yes or no, we cannot move forward on this.
May I respond? That doesn't mean, what's that $1, that lease for $1,
That-
you know what he does? No.
No,
They
I
want it
understand
written.
what
They
you're
want it
saying, but
written
we
like
did not
that.
write the warrant article.
But that's what I'm trying, you know, to just try to find a solution for the taxpayer. Us, if you say $1 to lease for 1 year, you know, what's $1? It's nothing. But the consequences of the action that we'll take if, God forbid, something happened, that's what I want to know. That's
I
it.
understand.
All right?
I understand.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on Rudy's question, when I said we weren't involved, what I meant is we're not involved in leasing the municipal property or the terms of the lease or anything like that. We did have a very brief conversation with the provider and just said we're going to have some conversation about what fire protection systems may be necessary once we knew what the system looked like. So it was, you know, it was very premature for us to be involved with it yet. They did say that they would be back in touch once, if approved, and they had a system design. And then as far as a fire goes, there's a couple ways that we could seek reimbursement for costs involved in a fire like this. One is through an insurance company, and two is really a hazmat incident, and there's state law about cost recovery from hazmat incidents. So those would be two avenues that I would pursue personally if there was some sort of incident at a facility like this.
Deborah Warner. Looking at this, I see there's a $1 revenue for probably 33 years of use of this land with an unknown lease to the people. And so many factors are unknown in this. I don't want us to be stubbornly sabotaging the power of the board to make leases and find out what to do. But I think there's much more information that needs to be shared with the people in this development. I understand now that Convergent wrote this, and they've made what seems to be very favorable terms for themselves, that they get to use the land for 33 years for $1 and for an unknown, everything else is unknown to this. I would like to propose an amendment to this. Are we permitted to amend wording of this?
As long as we keep it, the subject matter, the same, then we can amend.
I would like to consider an amendment that the $1 would be for the duration of the negotiation period, and that at the end of that period, that the board would bring this forward to the voters with an informational session. We could learn all about it and see if we want to validate the lease terms that the board might come up with, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or if it's the Water and Light Board. That was very long. I could say it shorter.
Yeah, I am going to need that in writing, whatever you decide that you want to
Okay.
use for an amendment, for wording.
I would say for the duration of the negotiation period, to be followed by information session and approval by the town. Do you want me to write that down?
Yes, yes, please. So are you saying that if we change the dollar to negotiation period to versus the But is what she proposing? Yeah. Do you want me, do you want to maybe speak to that and maybe help influence her amendment? Or do you want to let her amend this as a draft amendment? Hey, Debbie? Debbie? Sorry, town council did have an idea of perhaps what you're trying to get and perhaps draft it in a more eloquent way to get what you're meaning across.
I'll suggest something and we'll see if you.
Yeah, I mean, Joe's going to bring that as a possible.
You know, just under the terms and conditions of the select board, it seems appropriate or something.
Do you want to maybe run
So you're, well, hold on, because, so you're trying to get rid of the 20-year thing.
She's looking to do something.
We have to have a motion. She has to make the motion. And then we have to have Well, you're essentially letting town meeting break into
Yeah, I mean, she's making a motion, so she needs to.
that question is to debate all this other stuff after.
Do we ever just go We have the amendment.
Yeah, thank you for your patience, everybody. Debbie's ready to read her proposed amendment.
Here is the amendment with a little help. Thank you, everyone. Article 53, same title. The town shall vote to enter into lease negotiations for approximately 9,500 square feet of land at the town's west side substation at 1533 St. Johnsbury Road. It's the same right until the end. Shall I read through all the words?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, so everybody understands.
Not to the end. The last sentence is changed. To Convergent Energy Solutions, LLC, or its designated affiliate Convergent, for an initial development period of 3 years, followed by a lease term of 20 years, with the option to extend the lease term for up to 10 additional years. Convergent will use the leased land to develop a battery energy storage system to benefit Littleton Water and Light customers directly by allowing Littleton Water and Light to utilize stored energy in lieu of purchasing energy from ISON during peak energy demand hours. The sentence that begins with Convergence payment is omitted. Instead, it says, said lease shall be under such terms as the Board of Selection prescribes, final lease approval to be made by the town.
All right, so that is the motion for the amendment. Yes, please. Is there a second? All right, we do have a motion and a second. Now, is there discussion is there discussion on the amendment? Okay, I mean, do you guys want to talk on that? I mean, you're. Can you guys, someone come up to the microphone and just tell the crowd what you're saying?
So basically, by wording it like that, it's going to back us up for 2 years before we can make a decision on what goes on. I just want to let you know. Okay.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions?
He said 2 years? It will take you probably 6 months or a year to do this negotiation and have information sessions with the town, and that would be then on the warrant next year, possibly if you get it done early, or the next year if it takes that much longer.
this goes to Roger. Why don't you avoid this over here? Because we gotta wait 2 years before they make a recommendation about this land over here? We gotta wait 2 years before this, why you put them on now?
If the vote goes like they just changed it, if the warrant article goes like they changed it, it's gonna set them back for 2 years before they can actually do, they've got to go in and do a study on this piece of land first, and that's basically what this article does, is it opens them up to do a study to see if it's feasible.
Roger, you put a smart guy. If people go to vote, and they say Article 53, and they read whatever you guys wrote over there, okay? You confuse them. You confuse everybody. Now you say that you gotta wait 2 years before this thing, can be actually, a law. Let's just say a law, right? What do you want us to vote now? If it takes 2 years before they make a consideration on it. But now the point, what I want to say is this. I just find out that this one article was written by my friend, Jim, that left, the town manager. He's not here now, he can't really. But another thing I want to say, how you guys not put the fire department, because this over here is just about dangerous business. I don't understand why the fire chief said, I don't know nothing about this thing over here. They never
Hey,
tell me.
Rudy, we're talking about the amendment,
Yeah,
not
the-
the general
oh,
article,
the
okay?
amendment?
So let's keep it
Not
towards
the
the
article?
amendment. We're talking about the amendment.
Yeah? You think that's right, what you say?
We're talking about the amendment.
The
And,
amendment, it was done right, that's no problem.
okay, well, let's keep our dialogue to the
Did you put over there
amendment.
that it's 2 years, we gotta wait 2 years for this over here?
That's not part of the amendment.
Yes,
We're,
That's what he said.
That's what he said, that's not what the amendment said.
Okay.
You heard what I said in the amendment. It did not say 2 years. It just said subject
But-
to the conditions.
But you are taxpayer, you are not on the board, do you? Huh?
yep, if there's no other comments or questions on the article, we will call the question. All right, I will read on the amendment. On the amendment. The amendment has the article read as follows, and please correct me if I missed something. Shall the town vote to enter into negotiations for approximately 9,500 square feet of land at the town's west side substation at 1533 St. Johnsbury Road to Convergent Energy Solutions LLC or its designated affiliates, Convergent, for an initial development period of 3 years, followed by a lease term of 20 years, with the option to extend the lease term for up to 10 additional years. Convergent will use the leased land to develop a battery energy storage system to benefit Littleton Water and Light customers directly by allowing Littleton Water and Light to utilize stored energy in lieu of purchasing energy from ISO New England during energy demand hours. If approved, said lease shall be under such terms as, no, excuse me. Yeah, is that part of it? Okay, so said lease shall be under such terms as the Board of Selectmen prescribes, with final lease approved to be made by town meeting. Does everybody understand the amendment? All right. All those in, well, Bruce, we already had questions on the amendment. Is there something in the wording that I just said?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're giving, by doing this, you're giving this particular company the only option you have. There's all kinds of companies around
Bruce,
here.
Bruce, this is about the amendment, and
This is about
we
the
already
amendment.
discussed the amendment, and I was going over the wording. We've had a call to vote, so we're going to be voting now.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. All those in favor of the amendment, please hold up your purple yes cards. All right, I have 9 yeses. All those opposed, please hold up your green no cards. 22 noes, the amendment fails. Is there any other discussion on the article?
Yeah, I was going to comment, make that dollar as big as you can be, but we're not going to change it now, because I'm outside of the area and I'd like a little. But nonetheless, I think one thing the fire department maybe needs to do, and I know, I think there's two sources of contamination in a fire you got to worry about. What's in the ground afterwards, but what's in the air. And burning lithium, I think, is maybe one of the major concerns for maybe houses around, just to be conscious of what the limits are and how dangerous it really might be. So I think on those scores, we do need to check it out and do some homework. So I would say that. I will also say, I sort of favor going at this as long as we have an exit ramp that we don't have to go through with it if we don't like it. And so I think having a chance to look at this, I believe the cost of this will be about 8 cents a kilowatt hour. And if I'm right, Tom, we're at 6 something from Water and Light. Even though I don't buy Water and Light, I have to buy New Hampshire Electric Co-op. But so I think at first that difference will be a little bit costly, but you're reducing 13 megawatts down to 8. You're trimming that peak, which has got to have some value. And then on top of that, I think over time, that 6 cents will rise anyway. And so the 8 cents will be competitive at that point. So I favor looking at this as long as we got an exit plan. Thank you.
I'd like to propose an amendment to this article.
Okay.
The amendment would essentially be, the last sentence would be, convergence payment for the use of the land shall be as negotiated by the select board or its representative. And such a negotiation could include things like the exit ramp that was proposed, or even making that number somehow, and I don't know if it's possible, but I hear a lot about this 140 homes that are outside of the Water and Light area. They're Littleton residents. I don't know, but maybe if it's something that can be done to get them, I'm not saying to make up for the differential, but something, and that's what the land lease would be. I don't know, but that would be up to the board,
Okay,
whoever the board.
so I have your motion as follows: to strike the last sentence that starts with convergent and replace it with, or excuse me, not to strike it, but the last sentence should read: convergence payment for the use of the land shall be as negotiated by the select board or its representative?
Yes.
That sound, okay. Sorry, I just got to move my notes. All right, is there a second to that? I'll second. All right, we have a second by Carrie Gendro. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion. Just as a summary, the amendment to Article 53, I won't bore you reading the whole thing. It just changes the last sentence to read: convergence payment for the use of the land shall be as negotiated by the select board or its representative. All those in favor of the amendment, please hold up your purple yes cards. Oh, good, you guys made it easy this time. Thank you. All those opposed, please say no. All right, so that is amended. With that amendment, is there any more discussion on the article as it has been amended? All those in favor of placing the article on the ballot, please hold up your purple yes cards. Thank you. Are there any no cards? All right, the yeses have it. We will move this along. That was Article 53. Oh, no, here, I'm sorry, I stole your copy. If you wouldn't mind. Angie really likes it. Yeah. All right, we're going back a few pages. It's okay. Go back to page 4. We are going to, if you can actually give that to the town clerk. Angie's right up in the back. Thank you. All right, we're going to page 4, Article 16. Thank you, Doug. All right, is everybody ready? Article 16, ambulance equipment purchase. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $24,000 to purchase an EMS Autopulse automated CPR machine for the town's ambulance with said funds to come from unassigned fund balance, with no amount to be raised by taxation. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0 to 0. Would anybody like to speak on this?
Steve Height, Littleton. Again, I'd like to ask if this is something that if the town votes down, that's covered by a grant. Could be, would be.
So we did look at a grant for this device, but it doesn't score well in a number of priorities. We've been successful at a lot of grants, and a lot of the success comes at really finding the needs that match the requirements strongly. And so we haven't been able to obtain a grant for this piece of equipment. This is a device that we strap to your chest, and it provides very consistent chest compressions during a cardiac arrest event. In Littleton, we've had a number of cardiac arrest survival from people in the 40 to 50-year-old range, so relatively young people. And this device statistically helps us to improve that survival.
Other comments, questions, thoughts, or opinions? All right. All those in favor of putting it on the warrant as presented, please hold up your purple yes cards. Thank you. Anyone opposed? All right, we will put it on as presented. Moving right along. Article 17, Fire and Vehicle and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund Appropriation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $50,000 to be added to the Fire Department Vehicles and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 2020 under Article 32 under the provisions of RSA 35:1. Estimated tax impact of 6.9 cents per thousand. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0 to 0. Would anybody like to talk about this or have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of putting it on the warrant, please hold up your purple yes cards. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Goes on as presented. All right. Article 18, Fire Pickup Truck Replacement Purchase. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $88,000 to purchase a new pickup truck to replace the fire department's 1990 Ford F-150 pickup truck with said funds to come from unassigned fund balance with no amount to be raised by taxation. The special warrant article will be non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 2-1 to 0. Not recommended by Budget Committee 1-6 to 0. Okay. Welcome to come up.
Leela Reinstein, Littleton. I have a question, and that is, why is this coming out of the unassigned fund when we've got the capital fund for fire?
So it was my understanding that working with Jim Gleason, previous town manager, that he wanted to pull some of these capital items out of the undesignated fund balance because it had grown, and it would avoid taxation but yet preserve the capital reserve funds. We do have several large fire apparatus needs. For example, we have 2 Class A pumpers in Littleton, one of which we purchased in 2021. Our second engine is actually owned by the City of Boston. Our second due engine, which was a 1995 KME, had failed, and we were actually able to get a loan of a fire engine from the City of Boston. And so we do still have that need. We're trying to put some distance between when we purchased engine 1 and the purchase of the next one. And so we're going to try to hold on to that loaner as long as possible. And this vehicle was up next, it was in the capital improvement plan, the CIP for replacement this year, and we've had a number of issues with it. It's currently out of service because it has a $17,000 repair bill to fix an issue with the engine, so.
Okay, so now I have a question on the finance side regarding that. It's not cleaner if they would transfer money from the unassigned to the capital and then use it out of the capital fund?
So the capital reserve funds have just been started in the last couple of years, so the fire department only has $54,000 in their capital reserve fund.
Okay.
We're gonna put another 50 in, and then hopefully next year, the
Okay,
year after,
I was just thinking it'd be cleaner if we
Yep.
if we have a fund, we use that fund as
Yep, and we
opposed to
will.
using an unassigned. But
Eventually, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't disagree. Bruce Hadlock, I don't disagree with what she said. What I'm disagreeing with is $88,000 for a pickup truck out of it is utterly ridiculous out of the thing on it. You can buy one for probably half that out of the thing on it and do what you're talking about doing. It's not necessary. If you're going to do anything, cut the cost down from $88,000 to maybe $50,000 or something like that. That's a ridiculous figure to be buying.
Sure. So the cost is a little bit higher for a couple reasons. One is it's not your F-150 1500. It's a 1-ton vehicle to tow the 8,500-pound trailers we have. So it's the F-250. It's a 2,500 version of the pickup truck. In addition to that, it includes the upfitting and decals, emergency lights, all that type of stuff, which adds up pretty quickly. So it's not just.
I bought one for, I think it was $54,000. Okay, 4-wheel drive, 2,500, same thing on it. You're out of whack spending $88,000 for it. If you're going to be painting it different colors or putting stickers on it, you're still out of whack. Out of the thing. There's something wrong with what you're doing on that kind of money. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts? All those in favor of putting it on the warrant, please hold up your purple yes card. Thank you. Anyone opposed? All right, goes on as presented. Article 19, fire hose and equipment replacement. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $47,500 for the fire department purchase of new hose and equipment with said funds to come from unassigned fund balance, with no amount to be raised by taxation. The special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Not recommended by the Budget Committee 3-4 to 0. Any comments, questions, thoughts?
Can move this back further. Steve Height, Littleton. So how many feet of hose does this represent? And I question longevity for no more fires than we've had to pull out hoses for. How are they just dry rot, deteriorated? Is there a life term with the things? Talk a little more about the hoses.
Sure. This is probably around 3,000 feet of hose and the associated hardware that goes with it. Some of that is the large diameter hose that we carry, the hose that connects the fire hydrant to the fire truck. It comes in 100-foot sections, and it's almost $1,000 for a 100-foot length of it. So it's pretty expensive, unfortunately. It does have a lifespan. We push it beyond its lifespan. There's a standard, I believe it's 10 years. The hose we're replacing was purchased somewhere between 2000 and 2004. And also the hardware pieces that go with it, the couplings, the adapters, that type of stuff.
Are those not reusable on new hose with new plants, all the fittings, and, I mean, shouldn't be worn out?
So some of the some of the devices just generally after 20 or 25 years don't do well. Specifically like the gated Ys with the plastic ball valves inside, they wear and leak. Items corrode. And so we don't replace anything we don't have to. We certainly, fire department is several hundred years of tradition unimpeded by progress. So we do like our older stuff. But some of this just really needs to be replaced.
Where does that go when you discard it?
Well, we attempt to recycle whatever we can, like metals, for example, we'll bring down to the transfer station. They've been great working with us on some of that type of stuff. Some of it isn't recyclable, and we have to just dispose of it.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments, thoughts? All those in favor of putting it on the warrant, please hold up your purple card. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Goes on as presented. Article 20, Fire. Establish revolving fund for Franconia Emergency Ambulance Services. To see if the town will vote to establish a revolving fund pursuant to RSA 31:95-H for the purpose of Franconia Emergency Ambulance Services contract payments received for providing Franconia Emergency Ambulance Services pursuant to an intermunicipal agreement will be deposited into the fund, and the money in the fund shall be allowed to accumulate from year to year and shall not be considered part of the town's general fund balance. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $167,561 to be added to the Franconia Emergency Ambulance Services revolving fund, which is the sum equivalent to the unexpended balance received in 2023 from the Franconia contract and is to come from unassigned fund balance with no amount to be raised by taxation. The town treasurer shall be custody of all monies in the fund and shall pay out the same only upon order of the Board of Selectmen, and no further approval is required by the legislative body to expend. Such funds may be expended only for any purpose related to providing these services, including but not limiting to buying equipment and hiring or paying personnel. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on this?
Deborah Warner. I have a question of how does this Article 20 relate to Article 5 and us purchasing, a lease purchase, a 5-year deal on an ambulance, and then this one that could pay for some equipment, and how does this all work? If you could please fill us in.
Sure. So there isn't a direct correlation between, I believe it's Article 4, which was the lease purchase of an ambulance, and in this revolving fund. Littleton needs to have at least 2 ambulances in service at all times, which is what we have now. As part of this agreement with Franconia, we have inherited their ambulance, which is either a 2007, I believe. It may be a 2009. And we have had some work done to it to put it back in service, to be able to use it as a reserve piece so that we always have 2 ambulances in service. As part of the agreement with Franconia, the budget that was built, we are currently in year 1 of that budget. Year 2 of that budget has the budget's $40,000 a year from the Franconia contract to cover the cost of ambulance and equipment. How that gets administered is what this warrant article is. So it will provide some funding moving forward in the future if this contract is renewed on an annual basis to have a fund balance to purchase equipment so that doesn't come from the taxpayer. Basically, Franconia is paying their fair share across the board: personnel, equipment, supplies, all that type of stuff.
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. The 167,561 to go, that's being transferred from unassigned to this revolving fund. Is that like monies that they've already provided to Littleton, but we didn't have the revolving fund to put it into?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, opinions, feelings? No? All right, all those in favor of putting it on the warrant, please hold up your purple yes card. Thank you. All those opposed? All right, goes on as presented. Article 21, Public Works, Vehicle and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund Appropriation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $50,000 to be added to the Public Works Vehicle and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 2020 under Article 31 under the provisions of RSA 35:1. Estimated tax impact is 6.9 cents per thousand. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-2 to 0. Anyone like to speak on this? Discussion, comments, questions? All those in favor of putting it on the warrant, please hold up your purple card. Thank you. Anyone opposed? No. Goes on as presented. Article 22, Public Works Parking Improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $80,000 to cover costs associated with parking improvements and the expansion of public parking lots, including design, construction, and acquisition of land and/or rights-of-way, easements, and buildings. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7(6) and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/26, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is 11 cents per thousand. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 4-3 to 0. Comments, questions, concerns?
Ron Hemingway, Littleton, New Hampshire. Been here since 1945, I believe. I have an issue. Kept thinking, why are we spending this money when we could possibly tap some of the parking meter fund that I think should be paying for this? And I've asked Lori tonight to present us with the balance of the parking meter fund. And I believe that is, and I'll answer it, Lori, $105,745. We're asking for $80,000. Can it be used in helping with the parking lot repairs and acquisitions? Yes. And Laurie, you have the 1948 ruling on this. Could you repeat that, please? Read it, yes.
So the original vote in 1948 was to vote that the town will authorize.
Could you speak up, please?
Sure. The town will vote, authorize its Board of Selectmen to purchase and install on Main Street and in said Littleton parking meters for the regulation of parking on said street, and the revenue resulting from the operation and use of said meters to be used to finance the purchase, maintenance, and policing of said meters, or to maintain and improve streets and highways in the town, or to acquire, construct, improve, maintain, and manage public parking areas.
Thank you. So anyways, after doing some of my research, I feel that maybe we should take a little bit of that out of there and apply it towards this $80,000 that we're asking for. And I think occasionally we can increase the meter and the parking fine fees to keep up or in step with the inflation. We went through this, 3 years ago, Mike? Was it for the parking meter? We raised, when I was on the commission, we raised the fees, I believe.
We raised the fines.
Fine?
Not the fees.
We didn't
That was in
raise,
2018, it was, or I'm sorry, 2019, it was adopted.
yeah, okay. So anyways, that's my suggestion. And I'd also like to see the select board to reestablish the parking commission and as a monitor of needs and funds. I think it should be watched. I think it's a cash cow. I think we can increase the fees and so on as we go along, and as long as the tourists keep coming, they seem to like it. And they laugh at us when they pay their $10 fee fine. So anyways, that's all I have.
So I'd like to respond to some of his comments. $105,000 does seem like a lot of money. I would agree. And I would probably agree with your proposal if it was more like $200,000. For example, when we rebuilt Main Street, we bought all brand-new parking meters that you currently see, and that was a little bit over $89,000 subtracted from that. But there really is not a lot of revenue that comes. Basically, the fund breaks even. It's a revolving fund. And so what we can't spend any more than actually is in the fund. So what do we get out of that? Basically, last year in 2023, our total revenue was $72,000, but our expenses were $62,000. So that's only basically, $67,000. So basically, we only have a $5,000 revenue from the previous year that went to support the fund. But out of that, $67,000, we entered into a new parking program called iPark. iPark's about $20,000 a year for an expenditure. In addition to that, due to the parking study, we put up brand new signs to give people let people know that there was new parking, free parking, different locations, and that's about $10,000. In addition to that, we also have to pay for the enforcement, the officer that does the enforcement, all of the enforcement tools like the tickets, the handhelds, all of that stuff. We took out of that fund approximately $1,000 or maybe a little bit more for when we put some new lighting in one of the new lots and to prepare it for maybe an EV station in Lot D. We also spent $16,000, maybe a little bit more because there's some unanticipated bills that keep coming up from our IT company, but to put the emergency tower in Lot D. So the signs aren't cheap. The system that runs the software system that we just updated, which was a recommendation from the committee previously, and the expense just to maintain and to run the program, the parking program, to enforce parking, it's pretty close to that revenue mark that we just made this year, okay? Next year, we intend to use approximately $16,000 to $20,000 of that to prep the new parking lot that's going to go across the river in Lot A. That's for another emergency tower, brings some electricity into it. That infrastructure doesn't currently exist within that parking lot. It's a good use of the money, but we need a little bit of a buffer to that $105,000 so in case we have something catastrophic happen.
When I started talking about this, I wasn't saying drain the whole fund,
Right.
no. I'm just saying maybe take 50 grand or 30 grand
But we
out
don't
of the
have that.
fund.
We don't have that. And
She said you got 105,000.
We do, but out of that 105,000, I'm going to be, my expenses, just expenses alone will probably be close to the 67 to 70,000 mark.
I was under the impression that the average balance was a little over 100,000 year after year after year.
It is, but it's a revolving fund, so I have to take, the money in the fund is used for all those expenses I talked about on an annual basis.
Okay.
And so for the parking enforcement officer, for the tickets, for all the stuff that we have to buy to enforce. You're correct. Now, you also indicated that perhaps the fees and fines should be increased. I'm Switzerland on that. That's certainly something the Board of Selectmen and the citizens need to decide, but that was brought to the board. There was a modest increase on the fines, and they elected not to, and this is based on the study that happened in 2019. Right. So we've made a lot of improvements in the fund and in parking since 2019 based on the North Country Council's extensive study. There was a committee that was established to do that. So, certainly that could be a topic that they could reapproach, and my recommendation would be to approach this board, perhaps at a board meeting, and we could initiate that as well. But it's not cheap to enforce the parking.
I have a motion, but I'm, with the explanation of categories I'm getting, I think I will just withdraw that and
Super.
go sit down.
All right. Any more comments?
Debbie Warner, I'm not sure I understood all of the numbers that you were moving around in that. We made $72,000 in revenue on the meters last year. It cost $62,002 in expenses. We had $5,000 net revenue. Did I get that wrong? Or what's our net revenue on meters, if I may ask?
The actual meters is, I have it in the town report too.
I'm sorry.
So the 72,000 is the combination between your meter fines and fees. That's what the 72,000 is. That's what we bring in. But we expend around $67,000.
So we make $5,000
Yes, we
on the
did.
meters.
But we did some improvements last year as well.
Yes. It seems to me that that's not a very profitable operation.
We're not into profits. We're
And
into enforcing rules.
Meters have a lot of impact on us and inconvenience to locals and also a little, distraction for tourists and such. And I'm wondering if the $5,000, maybe we should just donate $5,000 to the town and do away with meters and save your department time and enforcement. And I just think it's a question for us to consider. What's the use and the value of having meters for
Well, that's
us?
not germane to the article that's current. You can certainly bring that up to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
And they can
Yes.
discuss that in a meeting.
I would suggest the selectmen might raise that question and have a discussion about the value of the meters. Thank you.
Any other comments, thoughts, questions? All those in favor, please hold up your purple yes cards for putting it on the ballot. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Goes on as presented. Article 23, Public Works Road and Sidewalk Improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $500,000 for the purpose of improvements, replacement, or repair of roads and sidewalks. The special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed, or by 12/31/26, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact of 68.7 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0-0. Any comments, questions?
Bruce Hadlock, Littleton. I believe the fact that your roads have got classifications, 1 through 5, and the state of New Hampshire in turn pays on the basis of the revenue based on the classification of those roads. That money in turn that comes in can be used for the maintenance and stuff like this on it, and it can be also to buy trucks or equipment pertaining to it. How much money did we receive?
So in 2023, the highway block grant received $177,600. We also received additional funds for roads, the HB2 roads 4 and 5, $49,972, just under 50. And the HB2 bridges money we received was $73,800. And that's about it for 2023.
I believe that that's not taken into consideration when you're writing this $500,000. I don't know who wrote it. I believe it's the old town manager that was here, to be honest with you. But I believe the fact that we're appropriating too much money out of taxation for $500,000 when you're talking about, what did that total out to, roughly?
Thanks, 220, just about 300,000?
How much?
300,000, around
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, you
I
get
think
three.
this is
so-
a standard article that's been on every year for the
Yep,
town.
it has.
And I think, Doug maybe can
Yeah,
speak
and,
to
and I,
the roads.
in the past, we've in turn analyzed it by, you can, class 1, a class 2, class 5. Class 5s are usually way out of town, out of the thing, out in the rural areas. But your class ones that are in town are the actual high, private roads on the people's houses on the different streets around here. They get, that's part of the money that they get. So I'm not sure that we're spending not 500,000, we're spending $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 out of the thing on it, and that's all being driven by taxation, because you're still going to get that money probably annually. So I just think that whoever's writing these things is not necessarily adding it all together, to be honest with you.
Well, all I can say is the money that's been approved in the past has all been spent. So
Yes,
it's being spent
yeah,
on
it has
your
been
roads.
spent, there's no
It's
question
being
about it,
used-
and a lot of
yeah.
your roads need to
Yeah,
upgrade as far as
It's
that part is
definitely
concerned.
needed, and it's definitely been
And it always,
used,
they always
yeah.
do wear out and stuff like that, but I don't know about $800,000 in a town that doesn't have not many roads out of it. Most of the back roads are not, they're closed, subject to bars and gates and stuff like that on it, so. Thank you.
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. I walked, or I try to walk most days, and while I use the same route when I walk to other places, the roads here are horrendous. I don't know what it costs to fix a road, but our roads are bad, our sidewalks are bad, and I know I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know. But I guess my question is, along with this, it's kind of related, is are we trying to fix all the roads? Or are we trying just to fix the downtown? Because I putting aside Cottage Street, because I know there's a whole other thing on Cottage Street. I mean, I walk down my road, and it's bad, and it wasn't bad a few years ago. I walked down South Bronson, not Bronson, right, or South Street, and those are getting all mangled. And South Street had some work done on it a couple of years ago, I think. And so it concerns me, and I don't have the answer, and I think we need to spend the money on it, because it becomes dangerous with the roads in the condition they're in, and then obviously the sidewalks also. So I just want to kind of bring that up, and I don't know how it's decided or everything, but I'm tired of tripping all over chunks of blacktop everywhere.
Yeah,
Or
Doug
stepping into
Damko.
holes.
Yeah, Doug Damko, Public Works Director. Honestly, the 500,000 isn't enough. Those monies that are received from the state go into the town's general fund, so it's not spent earmarked specifically for road improvements. So that's just a revenue source. So these warrant article funds are strictly what my department has to work with for road and sidewalk improvements. I work closely with the highway crew every year to figure out a list of what needs to be done, what the priorities are. And those guys are out plowing all the roads and dealing with it. I've been focusing on the sidewalks in particular. We're going to try to do some more work on Union Street sidewalks with these monies. Some more work on Main Street sidewalks. Obviously, the Cottage Street sidewalk project is separate. The Board of Selectmen did authorize some of the HB2 funds to be earmarked towards sidewalks in particular. I think that was about $50,000 that would be on top of this $500,000.
And I know that there's been a lot of patchwork done this past year, but it doesn't, I mean, the patchwork now is, a lot of it's just all like sitting on top of some other place, because
Right.
it gets
plowed
peeled
out.
up. And so if we can get it actually fixed, I think we can save money on regular maintenance. Because we're not doing this patching stuff that doesn't stay in the hole very long.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
In the past, and you just touched on some of the places, this has always been proposed to us with a listing of the areas that this money was going to be spent to fix, which is missing here. The other thing is that I'd like to make an amendment to, I spent some time working for Pike doing some asphalting, and I've been very disgusted with the quality of workmanship and the product that's been produced on our roads. When you buy an 1.5 inch asphalt, if it's in your driveway, you want to know you got an 1.5 inch of asphalt. If they're putting down a skim layer to level up the 6-inch deep ruts, and you put an 1.5 inch finish coat on top, you don't want the plows to go over for 5 or 6 trips and be looking at the base coat. The checking on the quality of the workmanship that's being done that we're paying for with this money is wrong in a number of places. So I don't know who's watching the pavers or who's bidding the jobs, but obviously the quality of work that you're asking for us to pay here for what's coming out is wrong. So even if we do less paving of area to buy the next guy up that does a better job, the longevity of the money we're spending will go a lot further. So anyway, I'd like to amend to this paving work down here where they leave off. Anyway, down here where the work is completed and whatever, that when the ambient temperature is above 45 degrees, not 38 degrees, raining and spitting snow, putting it on top of asphalt is wrong. And I understand that you can pave on dirt when it's not quite as dry or as warm, but when you put that finish coat on, you don't do it in the rain at 36 degrees and expect something to stand up. So I'd like to, if we're gonna go with that 500,000 and nobody's watching the bank, I'd like to amend it so that this paving won't be done when it's ineffective. Is that acceptable? Can I do that?
Just a second.
If our engineer's not watching it, the people need to put it in so that there's a guideline to go by?
We're going to have town council speak to that.
So that wouldn't end up being a binding amendment. The Board of Selectmen, as the governing body, is in charge of managing the property and managing the roads within your town. This body is the legislative body in charge of basically the financing side of it. So if you added that in, that gets too deep into their management, and that's something that falls on them.
It's my understanding when we have a town manager, the town manager oversees the public works and whoever else, and it's not on the Board of Selectmen. And when you have people that are not used to frost heaves or snow or have any background in any kind of construction work, there's nobody to watch the pot or point the finger or say anything. So we, the people, have to put down the guidelines for them to go by as a body?
Or maybe it's more of a select board.
Well, so again, your remedy there, because again, that falls under the governing body, not the legislative body. Your remedy there is the ballot box, placing people in your leadership positions that would maybe have that as an agenda point that they would move forward
But that's
with.
what I'm saying. If your options are people that are unfamiliar with the field and how it works, somebody has to put in the book with the guidelines for them to follow. And apparently it's not there. I'm sorry, but I know I want to fix the roads in town, but I know I don't want watered down paint, and if I'm buying an 1.5 inch of asphalt on top of the roads to make them stand up, that the crown shouldn't be taken off for the first 2 or 3 passes with a snowplow. It's wrong. I'm done, but I don't know how to fix it. But we're wasting a lot of money with this.
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton, I believe, and I'm not sure, that there's a fit-for-purpose requirements in most contracts. And if it doesn't meet some basic requirements that are industry standards, we should call them on that, and maybe the whoever's negotiating or even writing the contract makes sure that they are, at least there is something in there about when they can and can't lay down blacktop, and when they shouldn't, I should say, and also about prepping the base, because you can't just put it down on just whatever's there. Like if there's ice and snow or even a lot of dirt, it won't stick. So I don't know who that is, but I would say that if that person or people, whoever they are within the governing body, would keep that in mind when these contracts are negotiated and signed and so on. Just to make sure, and this would be for not just this stuff, but almost anything else we have done in town, we want to make sure that what we're paying for is fit for use.
Doug Damko, Public Works. Just to add a few clarifying points for, we do have contract controls for the work. For example, he was mentioning the thickness of the asphalt. Well, we don't pay by thickness, we pay by the ton. We're contracted by the ton. They have to submit weight tickets to us, so we pay exactly for what's put down. The thickness can vary because our roads are uneven, and it doesn't always, sometimes we don't have the best oversight. We work with our highway crew to work with the contractor, but we don't have always the time to dedicate somebody to stand there and watch them the entire job. So that's something we can try to look at doing better if we can, if possible. But we do have controls in terms of the cost for tonnage. Temperature isn't always an issue, but there have been times when they kind of push it and they try to pave. Base coat is a little bit okay to vary on the temperature like that, but top coat, we definitely should have better temperatures when they're paving top. So I understand his concerns. It's something we can pay attention more in our contract oversight. So I just wanted to offer that up.
You can't pave, it doesn't matter if it's a base coat or a top coat. You can't pave fresh asphalt out of the plant on a cold day on a wet road over a puddle and expect it to stand, adhere. You can't do it. And when you're doing a road or a driveway or anything, you measure how long it is, how thick you want it, take away for your compaction to get your 1.5 inches or whatever you're putting down for material, you figure it out in tonnage by the distance and the thickness that you want to put down. And that's how you measure it to put in a bid. Now, I don't care how you put it down, or if you're sticking it all out in the ditches or you're filling holes. If you estimate and give a quote for so much distance with so much material, that's what you end up with when you're done.
Right.
And if you don't have somebody in the town building somewhere that can follow the paper and stick a tape measure in behind what they're laying down, I don't know what's so hard about it, but that's how you figure it out. It doesn't take a genius, but we're wasting a lot of money, a lot of it. Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Amy Sharp, Littleton. The article is for road and sidewalks. For sidewalks, you mentioned Union Street, Main Street. I'm assuming that's some portion thereof. Roads, any?
Yeah, we do have a preliminary list of roads that we're looking at for this year.
Thank
As you guys know, we've been doing sections of Industrial Park Road, and we'd like to finish that for this next year. We've also done some sections on Mount Eustis Road, so we have some additional work on Mount Eustis Road. We're looking at Wickham Woods. We're looking at Balcom, Old County Road, Dells Road. Let's see, make sure I'm not missing something. And some more, another section on Mans Hill Road. That's what we preliminarily have on our list for this
Thank
year.
you.
Mhm.
All right. Any other comments or questions, thoughts? All those in favor of placing the article on the warrant as presented, please hold up your card. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Warrant goes on as presented. The article, excuse me. Article 24, Public Works Highway 6-wheel dump plow truck replacement purchase. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $195,000 to purchase a new six-wheel dump plow truck to replace the Highway Department's 2008 International truck with said funds to come from unassigned fund balance, with no amount to be raised by taxation. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by Board of Selectmen 2 to 1 to 0. Not recommended by the Budget Committee 1 to 6 to 0. Any comments or questions, thoughts? Oh, I got someone coming up.
Tom Alt. I'm wondering on some of these, like this one here, if I put any faith in the Budget Committee, which I do. I'm wondering why only 1 out of 7 thought this was a good idea. And not too many years ago, I remember one of the former highway men stood up front and extolled the virtues of 10-wheel dump trucks. Best thing since sliced bread. We had to have them. Couldn't fool around with 6-wheel dump trucks anymore. Now we're back with the 6-wheel dump truck. John, could you speak to that, or Dan?
Can I just go ahead and clarify on the 6-wheel versus 10-wheel topic real quick, just for everybody's understanding? When I first put together our vehicle replacement plan for the Highway Department back in 5 years ago, 2020, I did have all 10-wheel upgrades for all the 6-wheelers, and we acquired the first 2 of those 10-wheelers in 2020, and we've put those into use. So we've got a little time to get used to them and adjust to them and evaluate them for all of our routes that we run, the large trucks. And we've made the call that we don't need to continue with 10-wheelers for the other 2 routes that we run for the large trucks. So that's just to give some backstory on that change to this being a 6-wheeler warrant article.
Dan Stearns, Budget Committee. This article was not recommended by the Budget Committee, and I think the reasoning behind it was that we have been very generous over the past few years in supporting the capital plans of various departments for large purchases, the fire department, highway department, police department with new squad cars. And so looking at what we've done and where we're going, we just felt that we could scale back this large purchase and perhaps postpone it a year or 2 because the department is, in our view, pretty good shape. And when we met at the highway department, we got a chance to look at some of their equipment, the newer models, and some of the older models, which were not as old as some. So that was the reasoning why we did not support this or recommend supporting it at this time. But also in the larger picture, we were looking at the overall tax rate and the unexpended fund balance and trying to get some balance. And so that all played into the picture. So another thing is that we, as a town, have been very generous in keeping our highway and police departments supplied with capital materials and items. And so we thought, again, that to help keep the tax increase in check and the unexpended fund balance at a reasonable level, that this was the prudent thing to do at this time and perhaps look at it a year or so down the road. Thank you.
John Goodrich, also on the Budget Committee, and just to add to Dan's points, I'd heard one good argument about the 10-wheeler for doing the Manshill route because you don't have to come back and refill the dump with more sand. So that made some sense to me, but we also, there's a question of maneuverability and it costs more to run those trucks. And I think we've gotten sort of the feeling that we need a Cadillac for every situation. And I think the smaller six-wheelers are pretty useful in a lot of situations, especially as you go around corners and in tight spots around town. So that's how I feel, and I might be voting the same way next time.
Other comments, questions, thoughts, motions? Nothing? All those in favor of putting it on the warrant, please hold up your purple yes cards. Thank you. All those opposed? It goes on as presented. Article 25, Public Works Highway New Hampshire TAP Grant Match for Sidewalk Project. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $1,246,295, which is the total cost to complete the Cottage Street Sidewalk Project under the New Hampshire Transportation Alternatives Program, New Hampshire TAP, with 80% or $997,036 of the cost being paid for by the New Hampshire TAP grant, and the other 20%, or $249,259, will come from unassigned fund balance with no amount to be raised by taxation. The special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0 to 0. Anybody like to talk, discuss?
Tonight donut, Steve Height, Littleton. Why do we have to raise and appropriate $1,246,295 when our portion is only $249,259? And if we appropriate the $1,200,000 and whatever, and we only have to expend that $249,000, what happens to that 80%? What fund does that go into for a happy party?
So this is a requirement of town council. We're required to vote articles in the gross amount. Originally, it was very simple, asking for $249,000, but once they get in
Common sense went away a long time ago.
Yeah, it did.
All right, but my main
So-
question is, where does that other
Right.
money that we appropriate after we get the 80% back from these other people, where's that difference go?
It's set up in a grant fund, so we receive the 80% from the New Hampshire State TAP grant, and then we have the 20% from the town. And so it's spent 80%, 20% each time we pay an invoice. It's split 80-20 until the funds are
I
depleted.
get that, but we're raising the 1 million. So
Well-
the difference between, where's that 800 go somewhere?
That's the cost of the project.
Yeah, you raise the whole cost of the
But it
project.
says, will the town vote
It's-
to appropriate
Town
the
council here
sum of?
can, I think, help expand on that.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so it's that language that you're appropriating the 1.2.
Right.
So the town is receiving the 80% and has the 20%. So this body needs to say that we're okay with spending that grant money, that 80%, on the project, because that becomes town funds that you've received. So it's not, you're not raising 1.2 and then receiving it. It's not 1.2 in tax dollars or unassigned fund balance and then the other 80%. It's that you need to tell, you are, as the legislative body, need to decide what's happening with that 80% to spend it.
I don't know, sounds shady to me.
Greg Darling, Littleton. I'm not a construction person, and I don't walk on Cottage Street, but it seems like it's a tremendous amount of money for sidewalks. I didn't think cement was that expensive. Maybe I'm wrong, and somebody can explain to me, you know, Cottage Street is a street, and it goes up the hill a ways, but it doesn't seem like it would cost over $1 million to do sidewalks.
Do you want, I can go ahead and answer. Bruce, I'll take your question to you. I'll just cover
Well,
both.
Bruce Hadlock, Littleton. The most of those roads are state highways. They're not town roads, okay? Cottage Street is not a town road. Main Street's not a town road either.
But we're
So-
talking about Cottage.
You're talking about the sidewalks, as far as that goes.
No, we're talking about the Cottage Street sidewalk,
That's right. I'm not disagreeing with that.
not Main Street.
Didn't say that, ma'am. My next question that I have, though, is how much money have you already expended out of the undistributed fund balance? You've already voted on some of them. How much have you already spent? I mean, it's not like you have a bank book that you can just pull up and use it. If you have already done it on a bunch of them, you may not have enough money to do it.
So the original project went back to the 2016 bond that we took out, and so we've been spending down on that New Hampshire TAP grant since 2016. Right now, this year, about 36,000 was spent from the New Hampshire TAP grant out of the 800,000.
No, that's not my question. My question is, in here, we voted on putting things through and paying for it through the unfunded
Oh, I'm sorry.
money, okay?
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
if we've already spent $1 million and we don't have $1 million, you can't do it. So I'm asking, how
No.
many have they already voted on? And how much money have they got an
Yeah.
adequate amount?
It's only $376,909 is the amount coming from unassigned fund balance for
Yeah.
all of these articles that we're asking. So of that 376,000 is the 249,000 for this article. It's part of that.
So you have enough money in there to do it?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Other comments, questions?
Let me go ahead and clarify the question that was asked about the cost of the project. It's a little bit misleading to call it a sidewalk project, even though it is. It's replacing the sidewalk on Cottage Street, but it's actually more of a corridor enhancement project. And so the project will be installing new granite curbing for the whole length, putting in a green strip parkway. The sidewalk will be concrete. We're putting in 4 new flashing beacon crosswalks, 14 decorative lights similar to what's on Main Street as pedestrian enhancement lights at those crosswalks. And we're installing 40 trees along both sides of the road. So.
All right.
Plant trees beside the sidewalk concrete thing, and I think a lot of the places that we got concrete that they're tearing up to replace is because the roots on the trees that are next to the concrete ripped it up before. Why are we doing it again? You want to make it beautiful, paint the telephone things a barbershop color, the telephone poles or whatever. Why? Down the road, they show you in the cities on the TV that the trees are growing, those beautiful maples that used to be 50 years ago, now are 100 years, and the pavement's all buckling. I don't understand sometimes.
Other comments, thoughts?
I do want to clarify, we have a landscape architect in the project, and they're very much aware of the right species of trees. They're also next to utility lines through their water and lights facilities and other utilities, so they're aware of picking tree species that work in a street tree kind of arrangement, so.
Did they come here from someplace else, or did they grow up here?
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. What's the timeline we're talking about
This year.
this year?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Calvin Bollier, Littleton. I just had a quick question about the project on Cottage Street. Is it going to take the sidewalks all the way to where the food co-op is, and is there going to be a crosswalk there?
Yes.
Okay, that's good, because that's a really dangerous intersection, and I see people run across it all the time.
Anyone else? Thoughts? Oh, okay.
Bruce Hadlock, Littleton. How much money is coming out of the sewer fund?
None.
Pardon me?
None.
You have to. Anything that's put in for sewerage, it's a requirement that you have to pay it out of the sewer user fund.
There's no sewer going in with this project.
There'll be sewer lines coming out of every single house that's up through there.
This is a sidewalk project. Yeah, it's not, we're
They're
not going to
gonna go,
address
they
sewer
gotta go
lines.
under it. Okay, so that money, or a portion of it, should be paid for out of the sewer fund.
So the original bond that was the $900,000 bond, the sewer fund does pay 33% of that bond borrowing.
Okay, that's,
This particular piece is just coming out of unassigned fund balance. No, none of this is coming from the sewer fund.
and I know you have to keep your money separate from grants out of the thing out
But
of
they
it
are
as well.
paying for the bond. on
The
origi-
bond,
On the
yes.
original large
But
project.
they're gonna run into sewer lines coming out of every single house that's crossing the sidewalk on it, so,
So they
thank you.
Other thoughts or questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of placing it on the warrant, please hold up your yes card. Thank you. Anybody opposed? No. Goes on as presented. Article 26, Public Works, Parking Lot F, Raised Landscape Beds Repair. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $28,000 to cover costs associated with repairing or replacing the failing retaining walls around the raised landscape beds that are adjacent to Parking Lot F and the Opera House, with said funds to come from unassigned fund balance with no amount to be raised by taxation. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/26, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 3 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 6 to 1. Any questions, comments, thoughts, discussion?
Opera House?
Greg Darling, Littleton. Is this completion date of 12/31/26 an error? Should that be 12/20/25, as all these others are?
In regards to the timing of the project, I know the article's written that way, but in terms of our process, the goal is to complete that work this year.
Noreen Watts, Littleton. I know the Garden Club has been concerned about that bed because it's sliding down into the river. Is that going to be taken care of in this?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion, questions, comments? All those in favor of placing it on the warrant, please hold up your cards. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Goes on as presented. Thank you, Doug. All right, Article 27, Transfer Station Revolving Fund Tax Appropriation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation $195,600 to be placed in the Transfer Station Revolving Fund. This amount is in addition to 2024 user fees, which will automatically be placed in the fund. Estimated tax impact is 26.9 cents per thousand. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 3 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 7 to 0. Are there any questions?
What are with the user fees, what do we get for user fees last year for the transfer station?
I'm sorry. The charges for services for the transfer station in 2023, the revenue was just over $403,000.
So essentially, the user fees, the users of it are paying 80%. No. Two-thirds
They
is what
they
they're
need a
doing.
little bit of help to get through.
Yeah, my brain, but it's about two-thirds, right?
Yeah.
You said 400, and this is almost 200, so two-thirds. I'm not saying to do it now, but would it make sense to increase the user fees? I mean, not that I want that, I mean, I use the bags too, but not everyone in the town uses the transfer station. And I just don't want them to be paying for it as much as those of us that use it.
Yep. Steve, you come on up.
You the transfer man?
Yeah, a lot of towns will, towns choose to pay for their transfer stations in a lot of different ways. Some towns will go all taxes, some towns will go all fees. For years, Littleton's done this whole like three-quarter thing. We could raise fees in order to encapsulate the entire cost of it, but the bags would be double, they'd be like $6 instead of $3. And our biggest fear is that people either don't want to or can't pay that extra. So now you're gonna see trash on the highway, you're gonna see it on the dead-end roads. It's a delicate balance, and we're just trying to do the fairest thing for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
While you're right there, what is, usually when you ask for money, it's related to the purchase of something? And most everybody else asks for 50,000 or something to go into their fund. Why is it 100?
This isn't to deal with any particular.
Hey, Steve, can you come to the mic, sorry?
Yeah, this isn't to address any particular piece of equipment. This is to make up the difference, what it costs to run the facility, minus the fees, or in addition to the fees.
And as clarification, this is a revolving fund, not a reserve fund.
Exactly.
It's like an operating fund?
Yeah, it's a revolving fund, so the money, very similar to the parking meters, you need to take money from that fund every year to operate, and then you need to ask for more money to fill that in the following year.
For 2023, he has estimated expenses of just over $566,000 and estimated revenues from services of about $370,800. So he just needs that extra $195,600 to offset the expenses. But the transfer station's been doing great. The fund balance is building, but they're just not quite self-sustaining yet, which a revolving fund, you hope to get there. And you'll find the same kind of an article for the Park and Rec revolving fund as well, because they're not quite self-sustaining either. So these are the two articles that are similar.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of placing the article on the warrant? Thank you for raising your cards. Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. Article 27 goes on as presented. Article 28, Transfer Station Bobcat Skid Steer Loader Purchase. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $63,086 for the transfer station purchase of a new Bobcat skid steer loader, with the amount being reduced by any grants received toward the purchase. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is 8.7 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0 to 0. Are there any questions, thoughts, discussion, comments?
Just a big comment. The Bobcat skid steer we currently have, it's 12 years old. It's got 6,200 hours on it, and we can't operate, like we can't do anything without the skid steer. We can't bail, we can't load trucks. It's an essential piece of equipment. Just 3 weeks ago, it failed. We had a hydraulic issue. It cost us $2,000 to rent one for the week. So it's a super critical piece of equipment. We just can't operate without it. So please take that into account.
Questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor of putting it on the warrant, please hold up your card. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Goes on as presented. Article 29, transfer station paving, speed sign, and HVAC. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $40,000 to extend the paving work completed in 2023 to the gate, install a radar speed sign, and install HVAC in the office at the town's transfer station. The special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:76 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is 5.5 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any discussion, comments, questions? All right, seeing nobody. All those in favor of placing it on the warrant? Thank you. All right, opposed, no. Goes on as presented. Article 30, conservation, transfer to Conservation Care Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $972 to be placed in the Conservation Care Expendable Trust Fund previously established in 1994 under Article 10. This sum is equivalent to the unexpended balance of the 2023 appropriation for conservation expense and is to come from unassigned fund balance with no amount to be raised by taxation. Estimated tax impact is none, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions, comments, thoughts, opinions, motions, amendments? All those in favor of placing it on the warrant, please hold up your card. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Goes on as presented. Article 31, Library Building Improvement Capital Reserve Fund Appropriation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $20,000 to be added to the Library Building Improvement Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 2014 under Article 27 under the provisions of RSA 35:1, estimated tax impact of 2.7 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0, recommended by Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments, any thoughts, any questions? All those in favor of placing it on the warrant, please hold up your card. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Goes on as presented. Article 32, Opera House improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 for the purpose of repairs, equipment, and improvements to the Opera House building, equipment, and property and systems. The special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 and 6 and will not lapse until the purpose is completed or by 12/31/25, whichever is sooner. Estimated tax impact is 2.1 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-1-0. Any questions, any thoughts, anything? All right, all those in favor of placing it on the warrant, please hold up your cards and say aye. Well, you don't have to say aye, you can just hold up your cards. All right, anybody opposed? Goes on as presented. All right. I need a drink of water, hold on. We're almost there. Article 33, Park and Recreation Revolving Fund Tax Appropriation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation $581,384 to be placed in the Park and Recreation Revolving Fund. This amount is in addition to 2024 user fees, which will automatically be placed in the fund. Estimated tax impact is 79.9 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions, comments?
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. What was last year's user fees that were for the Parks and Recs?
Uh, 2023 Park and Rec revolving fund, the charges for services, $139,648.
So that's what user fees paid for?
Right.
136,000?
139,000, just about 140. Can round
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Yep.
Steve Height, Littleton. If it's public parks and recreation, how are their user fees generated?
pool programs, stuff like that, people pay.
Organizations rent the pool and the baseball fields for the league games? I didn't understand that. And the 581, 384?
Steve, the lady behind you is coming to explain if you'd like.
Squeaky.
I'm very squeaky, I'm sorry.
So no, I would think that 581,000 or whatever is a number that involves some replacing or buying or purchasing. I mean, are we just putting that in for the party fund for down the road?
I can tell you exactly what it's going towards.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is our overall operating budget. This is our permanent positions, our temporary positions, all our insurance, retirement, heating, electricity, fuel, covers our expenses for our childcare programs. They run 50 weeks out of the year. Covers our expenses for the pool. That's the maintenance, that's the taking care of the pool, that's the staffing of the pool, that's the certifications for the staff. Equipment, all the groundskeeping, that's the maintenance for the vehicles. This is our operating budget. Without this, Parks and Rec doesn't happen. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I gotta get a job.
All right. Any other thoughts or questions or comments?
Is it in the general fund? Is it in the general fund, the amount that's here?
Well, yeah, the article is a revolving fund, Bruce, so that,
No, I asked a question. I want to know if it's in the budget that we've appropriated the $12 million, whatever it is, is $500,000 in that budget?
Yes,
It is? Yes. So now you're doubling.
Sorry, Bruce, I'm not understanding. What did you ask?
You have an appropriation for your total overall budget, thing on which the town raises. And I think it was like maybe $12 million or something like that. My question was,
Oh,
if it's in there.
no, it's not in there. No, it's not in the 10 million of Article 6 for the general fund. No, it's not in there.
Why isn't it?
It's a revolving fund separately. Should be self-sustaining, but they need help, just like the transfer station. So we have to vote it as a separate article and raise, the tax dollars to go in there. But, I mean, I'm sorry?
How much was it last year?
The amount last year for the Park and Rec revolving fund? It's right here, right? That one? Yeah. 465,037. I mean, the Park and Rec was voted a long time ago to be a revolving fund, but it would be great if it was part of the general fund, I think, but that's up to you voters to, see about doing that someday. Makes sense.
other thoughts, comments, questions? All right, all those in favor of putting the article on as presented, please hold up your card. Thank you. All those opposed? All right, article goes on as presented. Article 34, Park and Recreation Zero-Turn Mower. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $15,000 for the purchase of a new zero-turn mower for the Park and Recreation Department. Estimated tax impact of 2.1 cents per thousand. Not recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 0 to 3 to 0. Not recommended by the Budget Committee, 0 to 7 to 0. Any comments, questions, thoughts?
Bruce Hadlock. There's money available in here under the REMIC fund with the budget that's in here for the cash is taken care of. They bought a tractor through here for $12,000 through the REMIC fund. There's that amount of money in here that you can apply for and get it from that part to buy a tractor on it too. To buy a lawnmower, because that's the way it's set up.
So I think the fund that you're referring to would be the capital reserve fund for the park and rec equipment they have, and the balance is $12,800. And then there's a trust fund, a capital reserve fund. Well, capital reserve funds are part of our trust funds. Yep, there's a Remick Park building replacement. It's $984 is the balance that's left there. And those are the two park and rec capital reserve funds that they have, so I think that's what you're.
Any other comments, thoughts, questions, discussions, presentations? Running out of adjectives. All right. All those in favor of putting Article 34 on the warrant as presented, please hold up your cards. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Goes on as presented. Article 35, Park and Recreation. Establish a recreation facility capital reserve fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $50,000 to establish a recreation facility capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 and for the Park and Recreation Department to repair or replace the existing building. Estimated tax impact of 6.9 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 2 to 1 to 0, not recommended by the Budget Committee 1 to 6 to 0. Any thoughts, questions, discussions, remarks? All right, all those in favor of putting the article on the warrant as presented, please hold up your cards and say aye. Or you don't have to say aye. I don't know why I keep saying that. All right, anyone opposed? All right. Article 35 will go on as presented. Article 36, Park and Recreation. Establish a swimming pool capital reserve fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $50,000 to establish a swimming pool capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the Park and Recreation Department to repair or replace the existing swimming pool. Estimated tax impact of 6.9 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3 to 0 to 0, recommended by the Budget Committee 3 to 2 to 2. Anyone like to discuss this further? Any comments? Oh. Hey, Rudy.
Rudy Josey, Littleton, New Hampshire. This is to all of us taxpayers, okay? Listen good. The Park and Recreation asked for $581,000 to run the Park and Recreation. After that, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 more warrant articles. It's another $125,000 that got to come out from our pocket, taxpayer. What I suggest is this: you guys do whatever you want. I both all know anyway. But regardless of that, why don't you put all the expenses that you got, which, to me, it sounds very frivolous that you're going to spend $15,000 to cut the grass? I come and cut the grass for less than that, man. $15,000? I can go buy you a machine tomorrow for $5,000 or less. But anyway, I don't understand why, it's, why don't you, I ask you a question, why don't you put all the expense on first warrant articles 2 to 3? Instead of having another $125,000. $125,000 from your pocket, from my pocket.
Yeah, they're trying to establish capital reserve funds for the swimming pool and for a rec facility. So you don't want to put those all in Article 33 because that's just for the operating expenses of the revolving fund. But these are like savings accounts to save up for a new pool someday or a new building or to repair the existing building. So it kind of has to be tracked separately to do the work.
Do any of my officers, the town, do they went to the Park and Recreation and check all this expense that they have? You're talking about $650,000 there. That's a lot of money, man. $650,000. That is going to come out from our pocket. Come on, let's be realistic. I suggest everybody vote no on all this warrant article. Thank you.
Other thoughts, comments, questions? All those in favor of placing the article on the warrant, please hold up your yes cards. Thank you. All those opposed, please put up your no cards. All right, the article will go on as presented. Article 37, Park and Recreation Dog Park Special Revenue Fund. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $4,600 for dog park expenses with said funds to come from the Dog Park Special Revenue Fund previously established in 2019 under Article 9 per RSA 31:95C. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0 to 0. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. I thought we didn't have a dog park, and that's what a lot of these dog owners are pushing for. I'm highly confused that we have expenses for something we don't have.
So there's the vote where they have $1 that is gone into this fund every year when you license your dog. And the fund has built up to be about $4,600. And so they need permission to be able to spend the money. If something should come up, they have to have permission from town meeting. So I just put this on every year so that if a piece of land comes up suddenly and they can purchase it for a dog park, they have permission from the voters to spend the $4,600, because they can't spend it without your permission.
Okay.
So it's just kind of.
But there is none yet, right?
Nothing yet, no,
Okay.
but there might be, you never know.
Other comments, questions, thoughts? Okay. All those in favor of placing the article on the warrant, thank you for your yes cards. Anyone against? All right, Article 37 goes on the warrant as presented. Now, we have one left. We've already went out of order out of all of these, except the only thing we have not discussed tonight is Article 52. Vacant land donation, 135 Riverside Drive. To see if the town will vote to accept donated vacant land identified as map number 78, lot number 286, or 134 Riverside Drive. Estimated tax impact is none. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-0 to 0. Any comments, questions, thoughts?
What, this Lilo Reinstein, Littleton, what does the town intend to do with this land?
Thank you for your question. We were approached probably, 3-4 months ago and asked if the town wanted to take over that land. Are you familiar with
I
where
heard
it
it
is?
when,
Okay.
I was at that board meeting where it
Okay,
was discussed
and
briefly.
so one of the concerns we had, the town would be forfeiting about $2,000 in taxes. So we talked about the size of it. We did talk about some brainstorming. Could it be a good dog park? It is a wet area. So we have brainstormed, but we have not come up with anything concrete.
So we don't know what we use it for, but we're still, by accepting the donation, we're still gonna be down $2,000 a year in property taxes.
If the legislative body
If this is
agrees
approved.
to accept it, then we would have to decide right from there.
Okay.
But as of right now, we have not committed anything. We're leaving it up to the legislative body.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bruce Hadlock, I'd recommend that they do acquire the property, but mine is a different reason that you people probably don't quite understand, but the town of Littleton owns all the property down by Walmart, all that land down there, which has some covenants in it that said they couldn't use it, okay? But if it was approached properly, they could take this piece of land and trade it so that it couldn't be used. So if you do it and you traded it properly, then you've got a very large, like 11 acres of land down there that could be put into a tremendous ballpark or a track facility or something of that nature out of it too. So I think that they should get it and then start through the town to negotiate, to try to change that piece of land. There's a word for it when you transfer it around. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments? Oh, here we go. A couple of them.
I just have a question for the board. I was at the meeting when this was initially brought up, and heard all three of you individually question why we would take the land. And so I'm confused now as to why all three of you recommended to take the land.
So basically, the piece of land was suggested to us as a donation. So in order for the taxpayers out there to decide if they want it or don't want it, we had to accept that and, you know, put it on the article like this so that it's up to the people if they want it or not.
Right, but it would be on here regardless, no matter what your recommendation was. So I'm wondering why you decided to recommend going forward with it.
I think there could be some good uses for it. It's really not a buildable site, but, you know, there's a lot of people in town that have expressed interest on doing something with it. So we just want to leave the options open.
Okay.
Tom Alt, I just want to mention that that piece of land that's nice and flat down by the Walmart is one of the pieces that the Conservation Commission has to monitor every year. It's mitigated land. It was mitigated land to allow the construction of Walmart and the whole Shaw's area on what was all wetland that was impacted. And once it's used as mitigated land, you don't pull it back out again. That land is sacrosanct as mitigated land. Plus, if you're going to walk over it, you better bring your hip boots. Years ago, before they developed the whole meadow, it was all farmland, and that was Albert Parker's field, and it was dry, grazable land. But because of what's happened all around it with all the big box stores and everything else, we had to move the brook so you could have your Starbucks every morning. That land has become wet, and it is mitigated, so you wouldn't be swapping anything for that.
All right, any other comments, thoughts, or questions? All those in favor of placing the article on the warrant as presented, please hold up your yes cards. Thank you. All right, anyone opposed? With that, the article is put on the warrant, and this concludes our first session of the 2024 town meeting. Thank you all for attending and participating, and I look forward to seeing you March 12th.